Coming to you from Southern Colorado, this is OTB TV. In today's podcast, we're going to be taking a closer look at the earlier mentioned graphic that I found at facebook.com. So there's a couple of different points that need to be made here. Obviously, this is a nightmarish image, something that we don't want to see happen. But there is the historical reality of predictive programming. I want to remind you of the many, many years in which I have disagreed with my so-called peers in the alternative media, people like Christopher Green and others, when they refer to World War III as inevitable. Because what's really possibly about to take place is going to be contrived, controlled, staged in order to achieve a particular outcome. And we are talking about the next level of the new world order to follow this controlled chaos. The artificial intelligence, the smart cities, the infrastructure that the new government, merged with corporations, the new infrastructure they will roll out. I'm not here to compliment, in a general sense, our society, its level of awareness. There's a lot of room for improvement. Throughout my life, I've struggled in a number of different ways, including conveying this message, this warning, to others and attempting to explain the difference between my position and what I'm discussing and, say, somebody like Alex Jones and what they represent. In fact, for years, I have talked about various cry wolf scenarios that they can bring out within the media and pop culture to numb us out. So there could be certain keywords that are purposefully bombarding the minds of people. And they can control social media and the algorithm to make certain news appear more than other news. Say for a number of years, like the period of years that we're in right now, where there's now like an abundance of disinformation alongside the truth. These are some various images of the Colorado Rockies. There's the reality of PTSD for war veterans. There's the reality of some people growing older and having to deal with their own health issues. And hearing about some of these possibilities can affect some people's health adversely, especially when it's only looked at one-dimensionally. And so when we talk about things like this potential event, there is a mindful way to respond to the information other than just simply burying one's head in the sand or getting caught up in the disinfotainment of what's on Facebook. And this also includes various articles that come out that get people really excited. For example, Denver recently legalized psychedelic mushrooms. I'm not against that. I'm still waiting, though, to see a deepening of the heart consciousness in the people that I meet, where it's not just about, here, smoke this, that, and the other. Bro, don't talk so much about that stuff, like to where I experience more consciousness in society. You don't get that from a magic mushroom. And that's not dissing mushrooms. But there is more to life than the things that people focus on. And we're going to go back to the image. I'm not going to start this podcast with war drums and things that really get your heart pumping. What I want you to understand is this type of potential scenario was seen by Leon Legant many, many years ago, and it wasn't until 2007 that his blog turned into an interview. This is less about ego, but stating a fact about how information can be put out there and the world can be, for the most part, oblivious. That this type of scenario, this type of reality was conceived in one's mind was seen many years ago. You can even go back to the 2000s and find other people that shared their dreams, many of them Christians, many prophetic dreams over the years. I also don't discount the possibility that dreams can be hijacked. And I don't believe we're alone in the universe. That's not the main subject of this. But truth be told, there are some people that can be targeted to a degree by whatever force. I would not limit it to perceiving it to be electronic harassment. Spiritual warfare has always existed, I believe. And it exists now on a level that a lot of humans, from their point of observation, just don't see. So there's been a intentional, deliberate agenda to divide us before this event based on the superficial illusions of separation. And then you have the implanted thought form memes, where if someone disagrees with someone, they're perceived to be someone's enemy in the upcoming civil unrest scenario. Well, it's actually ongoing. And for years, and even some of those videos were demonetized, I would talk about the fighting in places like Portland, and look at where it is on the map, and I would say, don't participate, or rather, you don't have to participate in the stage-managed Civil War scenario. As I've also said, you don't have to participate in the war of the genders. So as we look at this graphic, we could see a line there. And this image is an image that I took in 2012, heading towards the Garden of the Gods, where some of the pictures in the slideshow can be seen. This is Trinidad. It's been a while since I've been in Denver. It's not a place that I'm a big fan of. I've thought about various scenarios where people are fleeing south, for example, to places like the San Luis Valley. This is Ute Mountain, right there by the Rio Grande River. Now, on the topic of river, I want you to take a look at this map. And we probably should be blowing this up just a little bit so you can see maybe some of the detail. And we can ask ourselves who drew this, because it's a lot like Leon's dream. Now, if you look at the highlights section at the front page of the YouTube channel, it's a playlist there. You will find that video there. Taking a closer look, this is a depiction of the Rocky Mountain region. I also believe that the area in which I'm in now could be an area in which it could be the front lines, other areas, Western Slope, Grand Junction, certainly, populations living along I-70. Where is that going to leave the Denver population and the Colorado Springs population? Now, we do see, this is a military state, we do see a concentration of U.S. forces in the middle. Okay, so we'll go piece by piece through this. So Leon in his vision saw U.S. victory after a period in time. Sounds like a few years of insanity. Some people have envisioned it being much, much shorter than that. I haven't come across any long-term visions where they win. Repeat, I have not yet come across any long-term visions where people are describing us speaking, Chinese in 2045 or Russian. The world beyond 2030, and this is what's very interesting about my years of commentary on this geopolitical scenario, when you overlap it to the things that the deep solar minimum or the grand solar minimum crowd is concerned about with regards to infrastructure, civilization, massive flooding. What's interesting about Leon's vision is we didn't get into the specifics of solar cycles or climate changes, but natural disasters and earth changes was absolutely falls under that umbrella. And so people are concerned about longer winters, and we saw a massive winter here recently in Colorado. Who knows what next year is going to be. Also, wildfire season up ahead. as we see these extremes of highs and lows, an increase in natural disasters before the event. As we look over here, we can also see a flash. And what is interesting about this is he also talked about the Mississippi River area being an area in which there would be a massive congregation of bad dudes. And we could look at kind of like the path, the division that our nation is on right now, even within elements of the system. We've talked about that painstakingly. So again, there is an agenda to get us at war with each other before this type of scenario. What's problematic with discussions with people that may not be able to look spiritually at the long-term path of civilization where it's been, things like karma, right? We certainly don't wish harm on ourselves, but there is, unfortunately, like certain universal cosmic laws in order and are taking place. There's also, as I said, nefarious forces that are making this happen, that want to control the outcome. I think that it'd be kind of an interesting outcome to see a massive solar flare while the world powers are playing this nonsense, and for them to be humbled. That's what I'd like to see. And so within this conversation where others will say, get this emergency bug out, freak out now, get deeper in the illusions of separation, Trump, or Biden, whatever. None of that helps us prepare for this. Beginning also about 10 years ago, I talked about my feeling that women could end up potentially in a reality to where they're thrust back into the old world. And this did not earn me points within the alternative media. And I also begin to think that maybe the elements of the Me Too movement that have been manufactured to create that gender divide are also part of the cry wolf scenario, to where there is all this fear of each other, so we're not there to protect and care for each other when the event happens. I've also mentioned, as well as Chris Hedges, who's a journalist, he wrote a report about 10 years ago about pornography, would also coin adult performance art. And there's things in there he described as like depictions of war. And you know where I'm going with that. And so there seems to be also a sinister force that will bring us conflictnations.com, this graphic, that also acts behind the scenes in the management of the world of adult performance art, the top websites, and what they're depicting, because it's not normal. Let's just be frank, let's be adults here. It's not normal sex. They're depicting a time of war and kidnapping and human trafficking. This is the truth. And why would I be the only one to at least make people aware of this? That somehow these evil forces are brainwashing children. There was a story that I heard out of Portland. And let's go back over here and look at the East Coast. Probably what's most important is that you look at this and that you understand. Even Ron Paul talked about the potential of a border wall to keep Americans in. He also gave a speech called What If? And if you watch Fourth Horse Rising, watch the full 3 hours. If you become a OTB TV member at outsidethebox.vhx.tv, I think as time goes on, info like that will become more hot. Sites could go down. Channels are already going down. We're now already kind of living in that future of needing to speak in code and whatnot. So here's Mexico. How attractive would it be to maybe be in Mexico and not at ground zero? Now, what's interesting about this particular flash is it Lori Toy, who has and I mentioned to you that I was listening to an Art Bell 1994 interview about a woman who had a vision of a meteorite striking the Nevada desert. And I talked to you about that, how I just randomly kind of started listening to that 5 times in a row, actually, for some reason. Then we got the news about NASA and the drill. I guess they're preparing for what would happen in 2029. So I'm not going to play this fortune cookie prediction game to a T, only to be consistent with you and not jerk your chain. Consistently, I've said why I suspect the solar maximum after the minimum why this could be where X marks the spot. So even those in the grand solar minimum worldview and understanding, this is a compatible scenario. Because if there is a war for resources from crop losses, from major changes in the sun, I've always talked about the American heartland being a target because of the debt that we owe, that we were never made or designed. We were never meant to pay back this debt. And if people could really understand that, it's like people would rally and say, in the Fed, because like, what was the cool thing to do? And I was there. Were you there? But what happened afterwards? Did we organize, or was it just, some little campaign, volunteer campaign? Ron Paul. And I'm not here to say that he was perfect. He's the only person in my lifetime that brought certain people together around certain understandings. And his what if speech regarding what if Texas was occupied by foreign troops, say Russian or Chinese? What was that about? But on a deeper question and note, how do people not remember his speech and realize where X marks the spot? We're not doing, as you're fully aware, a bombardment of news releases right now. I'm speaking in a free flow, intuitively and practically. Because you need an adult in the room to talk about the elephant in the room without screaming at you. We gotta work it out. We gotta work it out. Yesterday, I was talking to a Marine about this scenario, and he's very concerned about Russia. Do I think that we're at a level, though, of community planning for such an event? Working together, using the water to have a permaculture garden where we put our energies together. There's been too much division for that to happen, unfortunately. In today's day and age, you don't just walk into a happy, shiny crowd of people holding hands if they have certain programming that they have not yet grounded out, interference that they have not grounded out. Social media isn't necessarily helping us now, is it? The cliff notes on that, we can talk about. Years ago, I saw it as something that had great potential organization for even off-grid groups. It didn't take long to realize how easily surveilled those groups are. This might be a proper time to tell you about the first time that I was ever in Colorado in 2012. I went to Colorado Springs, stayed with a listener and her husband. She was in the Marines in the past. And I remember going to a couple prepper groups that I believe were absolutely being surveilled. And at the very same time, there was an article saying, in Colorado, the government is spying on prepper groups. And since that time, and since Portland, I've gone my own way within regards of the group mind. And ultimately, even though I'm not religious, living the way that I do, it's about turning it over to something greater than myself, greater than ourselves, but also choosing to live before I die, to not constantly be in a prepper mindset, but to give context to this scenario. There's context to this scenario that you're not going to hear from other individuals. Here would be some context that future generations may talk about, maybe around the fire and cocoa, right? Isn't it crazy how long, certain occupations of other countries, how many years we've been in this current predicament in the Middle East? And I'm not a military commander, but I don't think that you have to be a genius or go through cadet school to have the common sense risk strategy, as if we're playing a board game, to not overextend your troops. I mean, here we are looking literally at a fortification, if you will, in the middle of America. We're at China on the left, Russia approaching on the east. Wouldn't it be interesting to be a fly on the wall to hear people have an honest conversation about the deliberate disinformation that was taking place before the event to manufacture such division. So if we here in 2019 can't even have like normal discourse about 2 + 2 = 4 to be able to accurately do math, right? If we don't have that, what do we have? If we don't know what time it is. We won't just call them warnings. The context of this upcoming scenario has not been very welcomed because of the spiritual tone that I try to take it, right? And I'm not saying that anyone deserves anything, nor am I promoting conflict or war. Instead, I'm giving you an opinion, a speculation that this is happening to our country in the future. And I didn't start this in the last few years. Okay. We're going all the way back to 2007. Obviously, anyone serious about what they're saying about that type of scenario isn't going to want to stay in a dense population center that could be ground zero. I got sidetracked with MGTOW. That was a side topic in relation to after years of trying to, because a lot of women are going to be affected by this event. And so, as I try to articulate, my reason for going my own way is a very, very deep subject that I don't believe that other men share. They may have their own gifts, their own warnings, their own truth. That's awesome. But I've already seen the results of sharing this truth with society. It's not a pretty picture. Even if you have a mainstream media screaming Russiagate, Russiagate, they'll still ignore an Alex Ansary that will talk about this. And so the context then is that America from the left to the right is not listening. And the programming, oh, that person might be this or that person might be that. That type of programming, that person might be left, that person might be right. That person may be perceived as someone's ethnic enemy if they're brainwashed. And so unfortunately, being a truth presenter of this type of a warning to the men and women of Colorado and elsewhere falls on deaf ears. So the danger in such illusions of separation threatens prepper groups. Because if people are brainwashed to be afraid of the wrong people, how are they going to be best prepared? I have always envisioned myself as an advisor to the men that will be a part of the resistance. Always. And I always felt that type of vocalized statement that I wanted to do good, even if I'm not a Marine and picking up a gun, I'm serving this country by warning this country about this event that's coming. And as we see these events in the news, did the Dow just not go down 700 points? It's like now there are more people that go, oh yeah, World War III's coming. Oh yeah, World War III's coming. But not then go, whoa, there's something to those that were talking about this a long time ago. Okay, there is value in that. There is a context needed about the solar cycles. I reference Alexander Chavinsky. That is not a perfect enunciation, right? But I'm very inspired by the Russians' work. Okay, because he found a link between the solar cycles and conflicts. And that there was a patterning that went back 2,500 years. And so I would talk about this within the solar cycle and realizing I'm mixing topics that today's human is not understanding. But if we want to get into Nibiru, if we want to get into another theory on the sun, or even just flat earth completely, that's in. That's cool. But the simple topic of saying that there is not only a history of ice ages when the sun changes, there is a history of conflicts and invasions. And if there are things like crops failing, of course there's going to be wars that relate to that. I'd be sitting there at Access TV in Portland trying to explain calmly, but also going off about the massive real estate buy in California. Now today, it's like, whew, Everything's illegal aliens. But wait, what about all of this? When China was propping up the California housing market, that's not an illegal alien dollar. That's not an illegal alien dollar. You need big money to prop up that type of real estate. You need big time money to prop up that kind of real estate. From San Francisco to Los Angeles, to all of you that are doing the face palm, looking at your rent in California, there is a reason for that. Yes, there's going to be more competition for resources when there's a lot of people in one place. What are some of the things in our world that prohibit some people from living off the grid and not being in one place? If we're going to have a conversation about cost of living, survival, let's have a conversation and deal with the real criminals within our own banking systems and say, let's step away. Not let's, and I won't even say the word. For years, I've seen websites like would say violent rhetoric, like do this to the bankers, do that to the, like, no, just like the mob rule type. Oh, real entertaining. That's what they want. As we hear people scream, we are the 99%, damn straight y'all are. 99% of humans are not awake. If they did, they would show compassion. They wouldn't try to use truth and knowledge and social media to manipulate people and vampire on their energies. They would want to see a more peaceful world. They would want to see an end to the injustice. This has always been a positive attribute of human consciousness. Was Superman a social justice warrior? Get out of here. Seriously. I mean, we literally have entered into an arena, a new dark ages of memes, of implanted thought forms. Okay? It is your responsibility to unplug. Bookmark otbtv.net. Check out the photo gallery there. There is an easy way for you to sign up for $5. By the way, Natasha, thank you for your donation. I want to thank those of you. Thank you, David Smith. I want to thank those of you that are listening. If there's someone in your family or a friend of yours that you feel like turning on to this YouTube channel, please do so. But in no way do I manage this channel in a specific way to get big. Hell, I haven't lift to get big anymore. I maintain. Well, I'm also maintaining on YouTube. And I'm attempting to go outside the box of a lot of the programmed ego mentalities that this world teaches us. I'm trying to have a new spiritual experience, and I'm trying to let go. What are you trying to let go of, Alex? Years and years and years. And it's not over yet, but years and years of investment in trying to bring this warning to the American people and not be considered crazy. And now to add insult to injury, I can see other people saying that this is on the horizon, but they can't cite Fourth Horse Rising or Leon's Dream. Why is that? Because to do that would give credit to the work that I've done. And what I've come to learn really and come full circle is why this is happening. Americans today don't even know who their friends are, who the honest dudes have been in the alternative media that haven't gone full fearmonger day in, day out just to get you to click. I mean, look at my views. Compare them to a brand new YouTube channel. They're nearly identical. Get someone hot and of the right looks that somebody might want. Oh, she'll be doing 300 views, 500 views, maybe more in her first few months. This started in 2006. I'm not going to cry you a river because of the algorithm, because there's nothing new under the sun. And who knows how long some of us have dealt with interference. There were some disappearing emails earlier in the year, like when I went to make a land payment and I sent it, but she never received it. And other things over the years, I haven't heard anything recently, but in the past, people would say they try to contact me over email, and I may not have gotten it. I talk about the paranormal. You may already know this. A lot of people don't. And so by discussing certain issues, and anytime you read a book about psychic self-defense, it'll talk about, or a law of attraction book also. By even invoking or discussing certain things, it can attract them. One has to be in a strong space to deal with that. We're not always as strong as we need to be. Sometimes we're knocked down by life. Sometimes the bad luck that we experience isn't so random. And so what you're looking at is something that's orchestrated by nefarious forces. It would say something about the true fallen state of human consciousness, that you would have a ufology movement that would be viral, but they would be unable or unwilling to connect the dots with their alien theories, their archon theories, and what I would consider to be somewhat of a genocide over the Middle East that today the humans on the ground are not recognizing. This is a fallen world. And there is a massive harvesting of souls taking place. A lot of people are running around marking themselves as if it's some sort of marker. Run around marking themselves with a white shirt, laughing and giggling, screaming there are no consequences, right? While spraying paint into their mouth. And it's like, there was literally a thing where people were ganging up on some articles saying about kids eating laundry detergent, and it makes people feel good to call random demographics of kids and others horrible things. But when we talk about morality and the idiocracy style today, where people are easily entertained, like that movie where he goes in the time machine and he sees someone basically watching the modern equivalent of YouTube. Okay, you don't have to take offense if I'm not going to be a fan of the prototype personality. It's up to you whether you want to be a prototype personality or not. And so my balls, from studying comment sections to broken language from people in which English is their first language to other things, it's evident that the circuitry is fried. I actually went on Facebook to get some photos. So some of these photos, by the way, are at otbtv.net. And even with all the World War III groups, they're arguing over the smallest little details, if it will happen, how it will go down. The last thing any of them are talking about in the World War III groups is a staged conflict on par with something like past banker wars. Think Anthony Sutton and Skull and Bones. Think Russian Revolution and it all being controlled from the inside. Think the United States and Mao Zedong and the control direction that China has been on. We built China to a certain degree. They're talented. Elements of their culture are beautiful. I am not saying that they are incapable of pulling something like this off. I am saying that in a short period of time, to go from the rice fields, so to speak, no offense intended, to a full-scale military beast force, that is not by accident. And it's also not being done to benefit the Chinese people. The U.S. have weapons. And if they can control the Chinese leadership and stage a war, then the whole thing then is mad. It's the depopulation agenda. And you can literally have conspiracy theorists talk about a depopulation agenda 10 years ago, take that away from them, insert false Sharia law invasion, poof, now they're siding with foreign governments like Russia. They're not even realizing that they have the whole thing controlled. Even people like Alex Jones. He will actually, in my opinion, rally his listeners to a border conflict, as I've been predicting that for 3 years. There's hardly anyone that gives specific predictions about major media personalities. Most people aren't able to, even over the years, see that he was more than just an asset of our own government. That the way that real intelligence works in the New World Order, you could be a servant to multiple groups at once through the secret society network. How did Americans forget this? We literally can go back to the late 1990s to William Cooper and other hosts. Even someone that did better work in the past, Jeff Rentz, no longer quality reporting or post to his website. Now all illusions of separation. You look at the old hymn But he would still always try to put on the juice and see, homie, don't play that. What a lot of people that claim that they're woke don't get is that the main reason these systems exist is creating these divisions. Okay, this new world order thing is bombing foreign lands back to the Stone Age. How, in what way is that then an alliance with Muslims? The logic is gone. Just simply bombing those countries, plucking them out, and then maybe moving them into a dense population center instead of maybe giving them a safer space or somewhere else on the planet. And I'm not saying that with hatred. I'm saying if there was this, hey, let's save them and take them out of the war zone, you don't then throw people into a certain area where people there have already been taught to hate them and see them as a terrorist. That's punishing them. That's not doing something for someone as they walk down the street and wonder if acid's going to be thrown in their face. This country's gone. You need to know why this happened. Future generations need to know that when I stood here at the mountaintop, people thought I was crazy when I would talk about this scenario. And even recently, so I know to stop talking about these things around people. And people immediately go, oh yeah, I know that's totally coming. And they act like they're going to sleep like it's an inevitable reality. Instead of go, wait a minute, nobody was talking about things like this 10 years ago or 15 years ago, hardly at all. They were kind of, where's the election going to go? Is it going to go Obama or McCain? Come on, doesn't matter. It's staged. Yeah, Obama won because he was selected. Donald Trump won because it was selected. Anyone that knows their salt with regards to body language and telegraphing, including when Hillary was throwing the fight and intentionally falling down in a partnership with Trump. I'm calling her a criminal, but it's a little bit different than what the others are saying. I'm saying that they are in it together. And when I say that to people, they look at me like I just committed some sort of religious blasphemy. Like I'm in a mental health crisis. Like, bro, dude, you need to watch some more news. No. The issue is I can see reality as it is because I don't watch the news. I think for myself. That's not something that needs to be corrected. That's something that should be preserved. I will be known in the future. And what's more important than ego is that the world recognizes that elements of our society was taken over by ethnic superiority complexes and inferiority complexes. The programming is way deeper than what anyone is saying. And so it's like an ego blow, I think, for a lot of people to hear it from me. I think that they would rather hear it from a Chris Green or InfoWars for tribalistic reasons. The big picture, when this comes out and people remember my name and you remember me, people like David Smith, you're listening now, you will remember me and others will as well. But it wasn't, he just talked about this, that, and the other. He lived this kind of a life. Okay. He lived in the post 9/11 world for nearly 20 years, and it's nearly 20 years now. And as a result, my experiences have been different than others. And yet everything has been about, I'm trying to warn you about this event. I remember Jim Fetzer laughing at me when I said I believe this was the agenda. When I met him in Philadelphia at the Free Your Mind conference, do you know what he said? Do you want to know what he said to me? He didn't care. Now, I don't know if Jim's an agent or not. I'm not close to him, but he had kind of a really weird demeanor, like because I wasn't fully doing the 911 thing. He's like, well, aren't you like a big, asset to the... And I was trying to explain that I was off the grid to step back from society, and he was looking at me like I was weird. But then I started to talk about China and Russia and this coming conflict. And he basically shrugged it off like the U.S. deserves it. You need to understand and hear from me that I've come across in my lifetime too many Americans, too many white Americans that have shrugged their shoulders up and have said something like, we almost deserve it. I've never done that to you. I've never done that to you. And that's the thing that is troublesome. When I see people that speak maliciously like that, and people like agreeing to groupthink, then turn around and say some other group is coming in and doing nefarious things to your community just because it's projected on Facebook and then people take action. That was deliberately directed at Colorado residents, Virginia residents, and Florida residents. I try to explain this to people, and I never heard anybody else repeat this fact. They focused that disinformation, fake Sharia law invasion in 3 key states to toy with the minds of patriots. Do you understand? And just earlier, they put a lot of patriots on the list when they manufactured the wildlife refuge. Now keep in mind, the main organizers of that got off scot-free to a certain degree. It would be the guys that heard the call on Facebook that came up with their armaments that got the 15 to 20. There's even another individual that I wrote an article about back in the day who was busted for being an FBI informant. He ran his own supremacist talk show, Hal Turner. And there was a clip of him crying in jail. And then we see a period of time pass, and they go back to what they were doing. And then saying that we got a community from the immigrants over here in this state, in this place. They're right here. Whoa. And then we have these admissions come out that, we busted these guys. They were going to shoot a rocket in this Somalian refugee camp in New Jersey or Arkansas or somewhere. And we knew about it because we were the FBI says in the press release, they'll admit their involvement. What? We look at the Somalian that helped bring Portland back into the JTTF that was organized by the FBI. So at some point, the people that are looking at the fake news that's manufactured, including the manufactured events, they're not putting 2 and 2 together and going, are we being taken for a ride in a cry wolf scenario to look over here while the brass knuckles come from the side? I would say that that's exactly what we're dealing with. And anyone that truly cares about women's rights and safety would recognize this. And so it would be important that you understood that there was a massive demonization of anyone, even Middle Eastern, and widespread comparison to them, basically monsters, like the Japanese were treated during World War II, depicted eating children. And here I am warning you about the threats to families, men, women's safety. There's a story out of Gresham. This is a sign of the times. A group attacked the guy's girlfriend. He tries to jump in to save her, and they beat him down too. Now, some of you have been beat up in the past and have had to defend yourself. I have a friend back in the day. The A-Man has quite a few stories. Some of them are very inspiring, though. They're very inspiring because of the odds that he faced in the post-Vietnam era. We haven't talked in years. But a future talk or interview would be a deeper talk about the sign of the times and why things were so violent for him. Yes, he was dangerous. Kind of a cross between Bruce Lee and Bully Young, but literally he was like the real deal in the sense of charisma, in the sense of feeling that tiger prowl aura, a presence that you can feel 100 feet away, kind of a deal. Powerful souls that to a certain degree are not defeated. Doesn't mean that they're never defeated. It means that they are a rare caliber of human based on the struggles that they faced and perhaps maybe genetics. His parents were in an internment camp at the Portland Expo Center in the 1940s. While my grandfather on my mother's side may have been involved in the bombing of Japan. And I love my grandpa. And the A-Man and my grandpa liked each other. My grandpa bombed Japan. He liked the A-Man more than others. So, the consciousness of my grandfather to have lived one life and to see a Japanese man as human impresses me. But here we are now in 2019 in the new Animal Farm. And some animals in the Animal Farm are more equal than others. Now, it is not the 1970s. It is not the 1980s. I didn't follow on the A-man's path. And fortunately, I haven't had to deal with the types of challenges he went through when he'd walk into a bar, for example, and then all of a sudden he's taken on 10 to 15 punks at a bar on 67th and Southeast Foster. Each one of them, bam, lights out. Bam! You got warned. And what would it look like if that type of spirit was channeled into something very powerful and even taught to people that were defending themselves? So no longer a barroom brawl and no longer a walk down the street. Based on that period in time in which people were becoming radicalized again under Reagan. We're having a parallel now. I've learned things through his life that I never experienced about how crazy some people are in this society. And I know there's such a thing as cycles and cycles coming back. So let's conclude here. A worst case scenario would involve an internment of people based on ethnicity, politics, or religion. And I think that that type of orchestration would destroy any perception of a moral America left. So the world powers, the UN, would perceive itself as having the higher ground or the high ground. And so such an event like that would turn the world against the United States, including an attack perhaps on another nation. What's on the radar right now? Well, we have Venezuela on the radar. We have Iran on the radar. North Korea is back on the radar with some fresh tests. Aren't we all relaxed now? We're making America great again. Fresh North Korean tests. So yeah, this is all accidental. Nothing's orchestrated. But here's when you're dealing with evil. When there are people that know all this is orchestrated and that the president is selected. But they're gonna do the AMTV InfoWars style of politics anyways, as if they don't even have a soul to save. And it is because I do have a soul to save. It is because I have a soul, period, that I fear no man. I will go out fearing no standing army. I will attempt to speak to all the people of the world, intending compassion for all the ethnicities of the world. And I would say with full honesty, in the truth media, that I stood alone in mixing these topics together. And not making this a business where you click now and you buy now. There's links for you to support me if you would like to. The numbers are so low, however, that it's problematic. If you can't afford it, don't worry about it. I appreciate you being there anyways. But this will come up periodically, that I am somewhat of a starving artist in the digital spectrum, living like the ancients lived, but using digital media. We're like in between worlds. We're in between worlds. That's Blanca. That's also known as the Sipapoo, to the Navajo and to other native tribes that called the San Luis Valley home. I believe one day that may be a safe place, maybe even safer than the western side of Colorado. And so I leave you with a prayer. May we all find the light. May we all find the safe passage. May we all be blessed to be around wonderful people if and when these events come to pass. I'm Alex Ansary, reminding you the path to the ultimate truth and source of power still lies within.